They're studying by the fifth one.
Yeah, I know. Well, they lifted, before you had to pass all of them within 2 years. I mean, you pass the first one, then you have 2 years to pass the rest of them. They just lifted that requirement, thankfully, so like, it's kind of less pressure to, get them all done in a certain amount.
Yeah, because it probably acknowledges that many people like you have jobs. This isn't the only thing you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was always kind of like something that I just grabbed onto to avoid taking the test. Like, maybe I'll go down to working part-time, but it's like in reality, it's like, that's never gonna happen.
And
You know, it's
beware part-time, it's.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're live? Okay, great. Everybody, good evening. Let's declare open this meeting, the Historic Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Commission of the Village of New Paltz. We're meeting May 12th, 2025, opening this meeting at 7 p.m. sharp. So good evening to everybody, particularly good evening to you, Sarah. Welcome. Sarah's going to be taking notes for the minutes. This will be Val's last official time at the desk. And a little later in the meeting, I have some ideas about how we're going to celebrate her retirement. But anyway, Sarah, welcome. Feel free to just like throw up a hand or get my attention if, as you're taking notes, something doesn't make sense. Great, thanks. So first thing is approval of the minutes. I've been through them. Does anybody wish to suggest a change or ask a question? Anything, Steve? How about a motion to approve?
I so move.
Move.
I second.
So moved, seconded. All those in favor of approval is written, that's unanimous. Okay, thanks. I hadn't heard that Bill wouldn't be here, so why don't we just,
He did write to us.
He did?
He's aware of that.
okay, didn't see that. I can fill in a couple of these things. On the 14th, 2 days from now, the village board is going to consider our recommendation that George join us as official member. He's been functioning in that way, but officially needs the village board's sanction. So that'll be one. And the other is I am intending to go to answer any questions and maybe talk around the edges of the local law establishing the DRB separately from the HPC. Bell reminded me that that meeting will open the public hearing with no decisions made, which is good because there are some things that could be better articulated in that document. So I hope to hold everybody's best interests as we move through that process. I also wanted to just say briefly, this isn't really Bill's report, but to report. I went to hear Bill Rhodes' lecture a couple of weeks ago. It was very good, and it generated an idea for me that I wanted to float, and I guess now is as good a time as any. He showed a lot of pictures, slides of basically Main Street as it used to be. And I started to think, based on this exhibit that I saw a couple of years ago over at the Dorsey Museum, that showed this sort of continuous line of pictures of the west side of New York, like the piers back in the day, like 40s, 50s. And then above it or below it, I don't remember which, was contemporary New York. So you just kind of saw this evolution, or you saw this landscape that I'm now thinking like could be Main Street today, right next to whatever images Bill has or other people might have, where we could just do a kind of art exhibit, but maybe that could also turn into a digital something. With the idea of pulling out what we've lost, I mean, like in the back of my head is showing people what the village used to look like, but also reminding them that the power of preservation means that maybe you keep some of these things that, are only photographs now. So I'd like to just kind of keep exploring that idea. And something occurred to me today that the campus is always looking for opportunities for their graphic design students to do internships, like, the last semester, second to last semester. it's free. There's a certain amount of work to give them guidance, but this could be a really good project for somebody doing that. So kind of thinking like maybe next meeting, we can let that idea bubble a little bit. I was also thinking that social media might be, and maybe something in the paper to solicit the public. I mean, people undoubtedly have pictures of Main Street in their shoeboxes somewhere. And if we get ourselves organized, we could ask around for those things. So that's just something a little outside the agenda. I think that we're okay. Did anybody want to ask about anything to do with the local law establishing DRB, about that idea that I just floated? Okay, let's call that done. The next agenda item is HPC 2503, Francis Reedy at 123 Huguenot Street for the garage renovation and new deck project that we talked about. I don't know who your dad is, so.
Yeah, that's
I saw him a while ago.
not him.
Okay, he may have been told 7:15.
He was, yeah, but I can shoot a text.
So let's, I hesitate to get into, North Chestnut Street too quickly. Oh, but you know what? We've got all the other things are people who, have time slots. What if we were to jump down, and Shane, you'll get a text back and let us know.
Oh, he said he's outside. Good.
So that solves that.
He's nervous.
Such a tough crowd.
How much you want out?
Oh, we go then. All right.
Good thing. Welcome.
Oh,
yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only one who's not met you yet.
Right.
Pleased to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Likewise.
Ships crossing those
Yeah,
night the last time. So this is a public hearing on the application that we talked about as a preliminary last month. There were a couple of tweaks to the original application. Maybe we should go over that and then have a discussion. I'll open the public hearing. Then at some point close it and then we can vote. And Shane won't be able to vote because he's got a
Sure.
familial interest.
Yeah.
Shane, do you want to just walk us through the tweaks?
I think the only real tweak was, we added a location for the condenser.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same.
Run straight to the rear view.
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
can
that's-
see there, so we figured it made sense to kind of tuck behind the privacy screen. And then up close, and kind of up below the deck. So I think there might be a code on the height for, just for servicing it.
Yeah.
I think it's shown, I'm not exactly sure what the height is, maybe it's like 5 or 6 feet to the other side, so it might have to come down a little bit, but I guess the idea is just to kind of tuck it in the corner behind the privacy screen and, have like a nice, like a short path essentially for the line hide, bringing the coolant in. Yeah, that's something, I believe that was the only change.
I think that's right. We did have a conversation about the shingles, and that, I guess, all depends on what happens when the siding comes off.
Right.
Yeah, and you could see Val, if you just scroll up a little bit on the side elevation there, you can see if it's mounted at the height that we show it, then it's more or less hidden by the lower level of the deck, which is part of the, you know, the logic of kind of tucking it up high there. So you can kind of see the bottom corner of it. Of course, you see that in flat on elevation, but in reality, the street is, you know, is higher up, more or less. I mean, your eyes certainly are, so I don't think you'd actually be able to see it. If you're traveling north on Huguenot Street.
No,
I really, yeah, I doubt it, so.
and if anybody's in the preserve, they're like 200 feet away. So,
Yeah, exactly, so,
Yeah.
so the idea was just to try and make it as, you know, as hidden as possible, so, and the way that wall is now, it's like a CMU block wall, so. You'd only need, you know, those kind of metal angle irons for it to sit on, and that's basically it.
Yeah. I'll just, I guess two thoughts. One is, this is a classic or textbook case of like where to put it vis-a-vis
Yeah.
the historic side of the street.
okay,
The other thing is, I've learned quite a bit about, the mounting of these things, just because our neighbors have done a reno with a much bigger unit than this, which they wall mounted. They got a lot of vibration, we got a lot of noise.
Okay.
And one of the service guys came out and said, these things are really meant to be on concrete pads on the ground. If you have wet there, then maybe that's not ideal, and it's a workshop in any case. But, you know, probably lower is better for any possible vibrations. Plus, this is the basement wall, right? They were mounted on an exterior roof, basically outside the kitchen, and it was kind of wrong.
Yeah.
we have 3 mounted on the basement wall and they're like a couple of feet from the ground, I mean, above, you know, water. I don't remember any specific requirements for them, but we've had okay experience with, them bolted to the wall, and no vibrations and no noise.
Yeah, we put 5 in our house, yeah, so we have 3 of them mounted to like the foundation wall, which is like a stone wall, but there's like a brick facing to it on the outside. And yeah, they have rubber isolators, and we haven't had any issues with those, but the one that's mounted on our kind of like rear addition up high on the frame wall, that one does shake actually. It's kind of a pain in the ass. But this, since, you know, there's essentially that's just like a retaining wall, there's just, you know, dirt behind that, there's not like an occupied space beyond that wall. Like there's no basement, it's just slab on grade, so I think it should be fine.
It'll be, or it'd be very minor.
Yeah, I think it should be okay, but we'll definitely make a note just to have those vibration
I think,
isolators.
and those isolators would be just another step to make it.
Yeah.
Prevent that from happening, you know.
I think that was the only change.
That sounds great. And you know, this was all in the context of just putting it in the plan so that if you decide,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right, so there's no obligation to do this, but you're covered.
No,
Yeah,
no,
no, for
that
sure.
that was a good add-on.
Yeah, that was great advice, and I think in terms of like the path for the line height, I think we're confident that we could poke it in there below the level of the deck so that we don't have any like sticking up above, like that's why we didn't show it in the elevation. So I think in terms of like snaking that in without kind of, you know, interrupting like the rear facade, the cedar shingles, I think we'll be able to make that work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Colleagues, any questions or comments? No, all looks good. Okay. So I think if we're all satisfied with what we're seeing and understanding, we can entertain a motion for public hearing.
Oh, I think, wait, this was the public hearing, I believe.
We have to.
Of course, sorry about that.
I move we open a public meeting for HPC 2503 application.
Okay, so we have moved. Second, Camilla beat George by much. Camilla second. Okay, all those in favor of opening public hearing? Okay, noting that Shane is recused for this vote. Is there any comment from the public online or live? think we're seeing just Taylor.
Yeah, there won't be, there's no action.
All right.
And we did not get any comments in there.
Okay, so, folks, we're not hearing any comments from the public. All those in favor of closing public hearing? I'm so sorry. Motion, George. Camilla second. All those in favor of public hearing closure? Okay, public hearing is closed. So it's for us to vote. Any last comments or questions? Has everybody taken in what the public has said? Okay,
George, look like a sponge.
is there a motion to approve as submitted?
I moved to.
Moved by Camilla,
I
seconded by George. All those in favor of approval. So that's 4-0, one abstention. Congratulations.
Thank
This will be a big improvement. in
Yeah,
Fairbanks, too.
No, I think so. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, your advice and help on this.
Well,
Yes.
I think
Shane
you,
also.
I think probably Shane will serve you. It's good to have
First thing you ever.
That's a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, and veterinarian. Good to have in the family. An accountant too. No, congratulations. We look forward to
Yeah.
the project. Do you have a timeline?
I would like to start it in the next maybe month or two, if at all, just get it going, particularly the deck part of it over the summer months, So,
Yeah, we gotta go through the rest of the permanent process.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I know there's a process to go through, so
Yeah.
it'd be nice to get, to get it going over the summer months,
Great. Well, you won't have to wait for us. Sarah will communicate our decision to the building department
Oh,
tonight. So
perfect.
it'll happen right away.
That's awesome.
Okay,
That's great.
wonderful. All best with the project. Very nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
nice to meet you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, I mean,
A lot.
I'll let you.
All right, see you. All right. Sarah, can you recap of any of those votes or moves and seconds?
So I think I got the motions, I got the 4-0, yeah, I think we'll.
Please make a note that Shane was
Yes,
recused.
I got.
We're good. Okay. Great, thanks. So we're gonna put HP things on pause until we get up to updates and discussions. Let us move to DRB 2504, which is 147, 149 / 151 North Chestnut
We
Street.
may not have everyone yet.
Uh,
Let's.
Was the time slot
About 7:30.
7:30?
Taylor's here. You are.
David, yeah.
David?
And you.
Danielle.
We're all here.
All right.
We are, okay. Would you like to come on up?
Yep.
Thanks. Very nice to see you both.
You too, thank you.
For the opportunity. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just, can you hear me
Yes,
from the Zoom stratosphere?
You're loud and clear. How are we?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Very well, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And let me also say thank you for your detailed cover letter during the last submit, or as part of the last submission. That's actually very helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to give a quick introduction to all the folks that are both with you and here on the Zoom stratosphere and give you a quick update just for those keeping track at home.
Let's have that. That would be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for the record. My name is Taylor Palmer. I'm a partner with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader. We're here on behalf of the applicant tonight. Tonight, I am joined, although they're sitting in front of you, by David Burke, the project architect, as well as Danielle Carr, who's our landscape designer for the project. In the Zoom world, I'm also joined by our project engineer, Mike Bodendorf from Hudson Land Design, as well as Carol Pacheco, who's actually from David's office. And I think we're making sure that David's computer doesn't crash out on him in real time. And we can always put those pictures up on the screen. So thank you, Carol. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Buddy Wordman, who is the applicant and property owner. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we are before you for our continued review on referral from the planning board for the project. We have been before the planning board, as you know, for about a year in connection with the project. We actually celebrated our anniversary last month with the planning board. So just to set the stage for you all relating to those discussions, our last meeting with you was back in April on the 21st. I know David and Michael and company have spent some time with you, including our meeting last year in October, on October 21st. I guess we like twos and ones because today's the 12th, we're a flower moon, all that jazz. We did submit, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, an updated submission dated May 8th, which did include our site plan, our landscape drawings, and then a new drawing, which just kind of relates to the building materials and finishes that we're considering for the project. Notably based on market conditions, product durability, and the existing built environment, including our new neighbor who's going up quickly, as I'm sure you all have seen, and driving by the site, the Agway project. We do have certain finishes and changes that reflect the multitude of parties that have been in this application, whether it's your board, the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, and otherwise just the applicant's review of those finishes. So there are some design changes that didn't make it onto David and Carol's plan that I'll quickly touch on here, and then we'll pass out some samples that David's got in his possession and go around for some of the folks on our team just to give you a little bit more detail here. As Mr. Baden's May 9th email noted, at the planning board, we're pretty far along, and they are requesting that the board consider issuing a formal advisory opinion back to their planning board, because we'll be with them again next week. So to the extent the board is considering that this evening, we know that the planning board is nearing completion of its review. So hopefully we can work towards and try and address any questions you might have that might work towards a formal recommendation. So while we echo that request, and I apologize, I'm not there in person. One of my three boys has strep, so I figured why not share that with you this evening. We do have samples of the facade that the applicant proposes to use here, which is a Allura 8-inch grooved vertical panel in the wood series. They call it fresh timber finish. And while I'll blame the tariffs, Allura sample is not available with the color and the finish that we're proposing at this time. They are in a partnership. It's called the Wood Series with Sherwin-Williams. So these samples, although we have a sample of the actual material, we don't have one with the finish, and that will be available to June. But because we don't have that, and David has access to the electronic version in the brochure, we do have a brochure that goes through that, so David can highlight that when he does his presentation. Some other quick items, because I know you have a couple other agenda items tonight that we noted in David's sheet 900. We did include some other details regarding aluminum railings. And then there's some updates on the windows with respect to whether we might use aluminum, vinyl, or other materials. So we're trying to be a bit open depending on costs. Ultimately, we are a very different project than the Agway and the Zero Place. We have a big set aside, a larger workforce affordable housing set aside. So we actually have a 15% requirement, whereas the other projects had a 10%. So we're part of the new code as it relates to affordable housing. And we're trying to make sure we can make the best looking project and make sure it all comes together. So I appreciate that opportunity to give you, an update about where we are. And, again, as the screen has before you, there are some other updates, whether it's parking, and other materials, signage and the windows. We can go through those details as your board sees fit. But first I turn to David, since he's physically there with you and can, I think, make a better sample of what we're proposing to do on the building.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you. David.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna share, actually, if you don't mind, yeah.
Finders.
All right, so thank you all for the comments and support over the last year. Have been great comments, and we hope we're responding well to them. I'm gonna first just zoom in here. I'm not sure really what I presented in the past, but I did want to just clearly describe what we're showing you here so you understand what you're looking at. This is actually a cross-section cut through the entrance. So the entrance is just here, just to the right. And then what you're seeing here is the retail, first of the several retail outlets running to the left. You have two materials you're looking at. The first is the corrugated metal, which is a dark. And then obviously what was previously proposed was the wood. You're looking at a curved corner detail that we are, very committed to seeing constructed.
You're looking at the windows, obviously, and then the rail at the top. So we could start first by just going, I think addressing the monotony comment that, you've mentioned a number of times. And I just want to let you understand how we address that from the very beginning, because we understand that a building this size needs to address that. So what we set out doing was establishing kind of a series of modules. All right, we're always also considering all the technical issues and cost issues at the same time, right? So we selected a series of windows and then we just put them based upon the module together in different ways, right? So we've got the 5 modules, as you can see at the bottom of the sheet. And like I said, they're I think 4 or 5 selection of windows. They're just assembled differently in their relationship. And if I were to go to the elevation, you can see how none of the windows actually repeat one to the next. So there was this attempt really to be cognizant of cost, right? We're not changing up the window design necessarily. We're just kind of playing with the module. So that's the first thing. And also, I think the other effort we made was the selection of the 2 different materials, so that the corrugated metal was in contrast to the wood at the time. And by bringing and exposing the corrugated metal in this location at the entrance, you're creating a kind of natural wayfinding for those that are actually going to the building. You're saying, okay, this is the entrance, because it's interrupted that, the entirety of the facade. And lastly, let me just describe, the kind of undulation of the facade, the stepping of the facade. So you'll notice that the retail is set back underneath the main block of the building. And that's done intentionally, right? That's to give weather protection, of course. But under that as well, we've integrated a planter, right? Which helps to separate the different retail establishments. So that's in itself giving variety to the facade. And on top of all of that, we think that there should be a certain consistency at the upper levels, right? Making the retail the special place that you go, right? That's where people really, for those who don't live there, they're going to the retail. So that you want a clear facade where you can see through and you can play with the signage. You can, the merchandise can be expressed by itself, right? All the while you have this kind of consistent band above your head. And then lastly, which Danielle will discuss a little bit later, is the idea of introducing landscape, which also helps to break up the facade. So between the technical challenges, cost challenges, we've tried to, provide a clever way of creating this variety along the facade, without being too far out with the technical and cost challenges. So that's all I'll say there. Any questions?
No, so far.
I think the only other real issue we want to talk about was facade material. So we have looked at detail some of the options out there, and we thank you for your own suggestions. We've landed on the Allura as Taylor said, and pass this around. And apologies, but this is actually a new material under development, and
So cement?
it is a fiber cement material, and it's a fire rated, which is important characteristic, of course. So the color is not available until June, as Taylor said. If you look on page 2, you can see, an example of it, and it's shown here how it could look.
So in the wood part of the facade, there's gaps, right? There's horizontal and vertical gaps between the different wood slots. So I guess with the Allura, you mentioned it's a new material, are the edges finished? Cause you're gonna see like the underside of the edge, you know what I mean, like the bottom edge, the side edge.
So what we would do during the final, construction documentation, we would detail that so that it looks, you know, you have a little bit of relief between, you can make out, the texture, if you will, between the wood.
Yeah, cause you're also gonna read like the board like thickness too a little bit, right? Okay, yeah, so I feel like, I mean, it seems convincing, like the texture, but I guess I just wanna make sure that those details aren't lost, like you know, like it reads like a wood thickness.
Yeah. Did you envision something on the order of 3/4 to an inch
I
to?
don't know, that's a good question, I'm not sure.
I guess in my mind, that's the sort of level of relief I was imagining, something.
That's fair.
Is it do they make a product that can do that or?
So again, it's in the thickness at the reveal, so we would, depending on the thickness of that material, we could specify it as 3/4 to an inch, or we could double it up.
Okay. Do you know if they have, do you have that kind of flexibility to go thicker than?
Well, let's look at the image. You're talking about the grid,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Absolutely, and I feel like, there are several ways to achieve that, regardless of the material. You can see that the design is very deliberate in, its horizontal reliefs and the vertical. And that's something that we would, you know, be very adamant to maintain.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page
Yeah.
there in the October presentation. We were all very positive about that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this elevation, I think the modularity of the facade needs to be expressed.
So what is, first of all, I really like the design. I think I've said that the past few meetings, but what is the board width for these, for the like the vertical boards?
So it's drawn at 6 inches.
Okay,
The boards that you're looking at now come in 8 inches, but you can rip those.
okay. So there's like,
And we might on the corner, we might play with the width as well to get a more smooth.
yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at, like, it looks like the radius, which looks good, the way it's drawn, it's maybe like 4 or 5, maybe 4 boards at 6 inches, which,
To make that turn.
yeah, to make that turn, I guess as long as like, you know, the vertical gaps are maintained and, you know, I guess I was hoping that like that the material in the corner could have like a radius and section, but I know it's difficult it's probably not possible to get that in these materials, so as long as like the boards aren't so wide that it looks like such a faceted, you know, corner, then you're kind of losing like the kind of rounded edge that I feel like we all like. So I feel like 6 inches is probably, I don't know if I'd go any wider than that, but if that's what it's drawn at right now, I think that looks good.
Agreed, I agree, we don't want to see it faceted if we don't have to.
Yeah,
We want that to be a fairly smooth
Yeah.
corner. And you have the parapet head detail as well. That can be fashioned as a smooth piece, which will help.
Okay, yeah.
so what material is that? Is that gonna be the same?
That could be, right, that would probably be a cast piece in that
Okay,
corner.
yeah.
You know, it could be something similar to like a terracotta or something
Yeah,
that matches another cementatious material.
Yeah. Cause the way it's rendered, it looks good, I just wanna make sure we don't like lose that and, you know, in reality.
And I will say that the battens as well, you know, I think, I'm very happy with it in the way that, you know, they are relieved or that they are proud.
Mhm.
And I
Right.
feel like, and those may or may not be wood, we haven't talked about that in detail, but, those kind of suggest a certain historic quality, right? The old shutters, if you will. And, I feel like that also helps break up the facade.
Yeah, no, I like that, but so just to be clear, like there's like the smaller gaps between each board and then there's like a stronger vertical and horizontal that we're seeing almost at every floor level, right? Those are also gaps.
Yes.
Those,
Well, there's a slight bevel,
okay,
dependent on, the final selection.
yeah,
Oftentimes with the material, a manufacturer might modify, material slightly, depending on the amount that you're ordering.
Right.
But we don't know that now, but, I feel like the idea of this being kind of a lap strike or a boat kind of, finish, I think you want to be able to read the boards.
yeah, exactly,
I think everybody
Yeah.
agrees, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've done such a handsome rendering that it's like.
Yeah.
No, you wanna make sure that all those
For
details.
good or for bad.
Yeah, exactly. I think the design is very good, so as long as, the materials achieve, what's shown in the render, which I know is not always, easy when the rubber hits the road, but I think we're getting there. Personally, I feel like the texture of that material looks good, it would, looks better than, I guess, a hardy board or so.
Well, that's exactly what we chose, actually, of all the materials on the sheet,
Give it a good look.
that has the most function.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could just talk about, can we got to the point where we actually know what the radius of those corners would be? Shane was talking about possibly 4 6-inch pieces making the turn, but is that based on anything or?
The details haven't been developed. So we're looking at, I think, a 3-foot radius,
Okay,
which is not very, which is fairly easy.
that's pretty generous,
Yeah.
right? I'm trying to visualize what happens, if it's a tighter radius, we clearly 6-inch boards aren't gonna make a smooth corner. If you take them out to 3 feet,
Yeah, it's almost like,
gets a little. I just feel like I think everybody involved in the project has appreciated those rounding corners. And I just don't wanna,
Agreed.
I don't wanna lose that.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Cause it's so much easier in wood.
Yeah,
Um,
well, even wood has its challenges, so it's,
yeah, no question, including maintenance.
in some cases, your cast material could be easier to get that, but, we're not talking about that, we're talking about, what's the best way to get a smooth finish, and I think there's several potential opportunities there.
sorry, just there's 3D model for those boards. I'm assuming they're rendered flat on the corner, right?
They are.
So maybe if we just like zoom in the lower corner, we would get an idea of
Yeah,
how,
that might be,
like it would actually read. Cause I feel like at the top it looks, but maybe we could look at the top too. It's a little pixelated, but
Looks good.
I'd say it looks pretty, yeah. I guess that's my concern, because I like the radius corners, but I'm just wondering, like, in reality, if it's gonna look too kind of clunky, but I'm not sure that it does. So that also, it's how high up, 6 inches, it gets, I feel like that seems like the proper scale for these boards. Yeah. I feel like it looks pretty good.
I think you raise a good point, most people are gonna see this building from the road,
no
and
question.
it's already set back
Yeah.
25 feet.
You're gonna experience it from like, obviously right there, like in the people in the rendering, so that was actually one of the other questions I had, like, what's the underside of that overhang you're talking about, which I feel like does a lot for the, for the.
There'll be a soffit and there'll be lighting up there,
Okay,
right, so you have
Put a
like,
some kind of smooth cement.
most likely.
Okay. Let's see if we can just share thoughts. So is everybody feeling good about the two, let's call them grids? There's the sort of 6-inch grid and then there's the larger, roughly 12-foot grid. Yeah, I think it's an excellent, okay, so Sarah, let's make a note of that, that's pleasing to everybody and obviously pleasing to David and his team. I know that as early as October and then more passingly, last month, we talked quite a bit about making sure that the windows have some relief, that there's profile there, and this looks like it's doing that. We did kick around the idea of something a little bit more sill-like, and I'm just wondering if,
You caught me. There will be sill ahead and a sill.
okay,
All right, and it would be probably at the flush with the face of the building or just proud of it. I would prefer to leave the vertical more proud,
I think that's.
so that becomes, you know, the effect. And then the sill, the head and the windowsill itself would be, you know, a traditional sill. Probably something of like a, you know, a 3/4 or a 5/4 or something like that.
On which side of the head?
Same,
Same.
yeah.
Okay, and do you have a notion of how much those vertical battens would be proud, a couple of inches?
Yeah, I would say we go even as far as 4 to 6 inches.
Okay.
Yeah. Because by the time you get that far away, you really want them to read.
Yeah. That may give you even a little more for the sill and the header.
They also do tend to act as privacy.
Yeah.
They do give some privacy because you're not seeing at a diagonal into the.
So, just moving on to the windows, well, unless I don't know, I don't want to end the conversation on these materials, but this is just my next question. So are we still, I saw in the cover page here that, are you guys still considering like different materials for the windows, or is it?
We're putting forward the allure tonight.
Sorry, what was
We're
that?
putting forward the allure.
Oh, no, for the windows, the Marvin aluminum, is that still?
That has not been defined. I think, again, these are cost issues, so we're gonna have to identify, you know, the right system for the right time.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I feel like.
I think the black though is something that you know, is important.
Yeah.
No, for sure,
That
no,
was the feeling.
definitely. I mean, I feel like the aluminum matches the storefront just in terms of the material. I know they're, you know, in two different applications in this project, but then also like in module 1 and module 4 for the window modules, there's like a pretty wide, almost like stud pocket like panel between the two windows. And I feel like that the material of that should match whatever the window
Yes.
material is. So it's also, and then just continuing on that, I feel like that would, you know, look nice and clean as like, you know, like a flat aluminum panel, you know, that maybe I feel like that would be easy to match. If it is like a Marvin aluminum, you know, you could just get like a flat panel and just have it kind of look pretty seamless instead of,
For the window manufacturers to fabricate them.
yeah, I mean, even better. Yeah, even better, that would be great.
But certainly it would appear, whatever is done, it would appear as if it's the same system.
Yeah,
The same.
It appears that one unit,
Yeah, exactly,
more
yeah,
than a piece of side in between.
yeah, exactly. All right, so I guess just in terms of whatever the material the windows are, just making sure that that's, you know, coordinated and, you know, looks, and matches as best as possible. And you're not proposing anything like texture, that's just like a flat, and the finish would just match whatever the window is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's a
We
map.
want to see that sill and head detail.
Yeah, I mean, so, back to Taylor's, letter and comments, I know that the project is eager for a final sign off, but some of these details are pretty important. I mean, I think we can agree in principle that we're gonna have headers, and sills, but, you know, at some point, we should look at what that actually is. And we're getting increasingly close to, you know, the point where you want to make decisions about the window systems and get that, you know, down. And likewise, you know, I'm still very much wanting to make sure that those corners round out the way we're hoping, and I just can't quite visualize what happens with 6-inch pieces across a 3-foot radius. It sounds like it should work, but that's that's a level of detail that I think we'd like to see, but I think we can definitely move things along with a broad agreement that that's what we're striving for.
Appreciate that.
There's no possibility that the Allure people do a vent product. Or
We've not asked that question.
that just seems like it could make life really easy. Even just a tiny bit of vent would just help ease that corner. Let's try to just check in on windows. Is everybody comfortable with 5 module distribution? I
Yeah.
guess?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so there's something solid.
And we do have a presentation, Mr. Chairman, on landscaping as well, so we can certainly provide that. I know I don't want to jump ahead anything if you're still on specifics for the facade or the building itself, but we do have that discussion as well based on some comments from prior meetings.
Yeah. No, we're eager to hear that as well. And I think just on Windows, George's point, I guess Shane's point as well, you know, as seamless as that can be, so it doesn't look like, you know, an erector set, but rather just a finished single thing. I think it's a really good solution. I think the board feels that way.
Yeah, and then I guess just one other thing on the thickness, like let's say, I'm just throwing an idea out there, like let's say this doesn't come, the Allure doesn't come in thickness, I mean, maybe this doesn't look, that's convincing of like a wood board. I'm just looking at the underside, like at the top, you have that handsome kind of cap. Maybe on the, I don't know, on the bottom, maybe. I mean, I guess was it a design decision to have the boards kind of end? And I don't mean this in a bad way, but almost like unceremoniously, like they just kind of like end at the bottom. Like was that like a deliberate design decision or you know what I mean? Like because I guess that's the opportunity where I feel like you would see, you know, like the thickness and material, if it's potentially not finished, maybe a way of dealing with that is having like some kind of like little edge catching it. That's maybe like a smaller version of like the top cap, but you know, kind of has like a similar rounded detail, but you know, like that this material dives into, that might be a way of alleviating some of. Because I guess I just feel like you know, the whole point of the wood, and it feels like you've taken great care to make it convincing. I just feel like that's an opportunity where it's like, in reality, you're gonna look up and see it and be like, oh, it's only like this thick or whatever. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I feel like, yeah, I feel like there might be an opportunity there. You know, like just like not the same size of the cap, but maybe something smaller. I don't know. Just throwing an idea out there, like, and that actually might be a clean way to even make that rounded corner, even you know, maybe clean it up a little bit or something.
I think that's a really good suggestion.
So thicken it at the underside.
Yeah, almost like I don't know if you call it a cap on the bottom, but capping it, I'm imagining a couple of inches would.
Well, hiding the thickness.
Just hiding
Yeah.
it.
And then I guess like integrate that into like, you know, as you said, like there's gonna be a soffit. I don't know what that material is gonna be.
Some kind of trim detail.
Yeah,
It could be at the bottom of the black metal also.
Yeah, I guess that was my next question is, I mean, I guess it's not that it's less important, but with the black metal, you know, what you see is what you get, like, you know, that's.
You know, it's metal.
True.
Yeah, corrugated face that's kind of applied to the framing, whereas like with the wood, you know, there's kind of, you know, there's. Not like a sexiness, but there's just like, you know, there's like this nice quality to the wood. I just feel like, you know, you wanna just hammer that home and these little details, and I just feel like, again, like just looking on the other side, you might be like, oh.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you've got the metal as a thin,
Yeah,
you know, it's applied and it's okay. It's, you know, it's.
yeah, and
it's
you
cemented,
see it like that, exactly.
and then you have the contrast to the, you know, to the bars, which are, you know, something a little more authentic or durable, if you will.
Yeah.
And
And I guess,
so I do appreciate that.
and I guess even in reality, I mean, although I think it's an interesting design choice to have the wood boards just kind of end like that, I don't think that's bad. And
It depends on what you see. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
It could work if you do it correctly.
Exactly, and because it's almost, you don't really see wood boards on normal buildings, like end like that. But this is obviously like an interesting design and, anyway.
How do others feel about that suggestion? Yeah, I feel strongly that that's a good idea. I mean, especially if you are resorting to whatever that is, 5/16 thick. It won't show as 5/16 thick.
Unless you can get it bigger.
Unless you
in
get
that-
it thicker.
In that location.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the underside, I guess, well, this kind
You're
of,
also
this
gonna,
kind of.
you're also gonna need a drip edge there as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a real opportunity to do something with drip edge that's gonna have a little bit of mass and have that function. Stephen, are you on board? Yeah. Okay, that sounds pretty unanimous. So the battens you thought might be as much as 4+ inches off the side of the wall. I think that sounds good. One of the things that was mentioned in the letter, and I don't think I'm seeing it here, is, the letter had said that the fence is gonna come back a full 9 feet. It may be that is 9 feet. It looks a lot tighter than that. But let's talk about the fencing. I know it's a little early to get down to the actual products, but a welded aluminum, a welded steel, I think would be fine with all of us. What isn't so fine is what's down the street, which is, looks like somebody else. And just,
What is it, the zero plans?
I wasn't gonna say the name,
Yeah.
but yes. And again, we didn't have any control over that fence and would not have said yes to that.
So we'll keep this as thin and as visibly appealing as possible,
Yeah.
or it'll be even harder to see, I think. From
That's
that
the hope.
distance, you're 35 feet away from it, even standing.
Yeah. And by pulling it 9 feet back, I mean, most people engaging with the building aren't gonna see it at all. It's the.
It really comes down to what needs to be accessed at the roof level, because it's a safety rail at the end of the day.
Right,
Right? I mean, the rail is, a industrial component. It does, I think, actually marry well with, say, the corrugated metal. Right? And it is, very, very simple in that it's a 4-foot on center pickets with a single rail.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I think it actually does kind of marry well with part of the contrasting materials. But I think you're really just not gonna see it at the end of the day.
And that's required, like fall protection too, right? So,
that's all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
right.
Required.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like
And
it,
that's
just
why
like,
the single rail, I mean, it really is just to prevent somebody from
Yeah.
backing off the road.
yeah, I mean, as you described, like, I like kind of just simple utilitarian look,
Yeah,
like not drawing too much attention to it, and the way it's rendered, the way it's the little kind of, inspiration pick. Looks good. I like that.
No, I think we can. Is everybody in agreement there? I think the material is much less important than the profile of it, just the finish look of it. Right. Does anybody have any questions or comments of what we've discussed so far? I'm thinking we can move on to landscaping. I'd like to say again, we're really enthusiastic about the overall design. It's a handsome building.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Let's turn it over to Daniel for the landscaping.
The landscape plan is shared on the screen. I didn't take the liberty of providing a colored plan because there's a lot of detail. Some of the landscape plans.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to highlight, all the circles. So all of these colored circles represent trees. And I'll start out by saying that the planting plan was developed in association with the site plan, and early on developed with the architectural design and intended to both complement the architectural design and to help it fit into the space, to complement it, to provide a green setting. And just looking at the plan on the right is, of course, Route 32. And the front of the building has been brought up to the street to develop a streetscape space. So in that location, along the face of the building and wrapping around the south end of the building where the commercial and retail spaces will be, those trees are what we're designating as street trees. And they're trees that get quite large, medium to fast growth rate, and intended to provide shade, but also intended to not have such a heavy canopy and such large leaves that they don't offer glimpses of the building, because we don't want to block the entire front of the building from the street. We want people to be able to see those commercial and retail spaces and to be able to pick out the main entrance of the building. We don't want to hide the beautiful building, right? So the design intent along that streetscape is to have canopies of larger shade trees and lower plants growing beneath, so that we're separating a public streetscape, the sidewalk and the parallel parking in front, from the spaces in front of the retail and commercial storefronts, and, you know, keeping the main entrance of the building clear. And another function that all of the plantings there along the front of the building serve as they're part of the stormwater management system. The series of cutouts in the pavement there serve as stormwater management. They collect and treat the stormwater and help it become clean before it's stored and then ultimately discharged from the site or soaks into the ground. So as we move into the site from the front of the building, the plantings around the building, closest to the building. Again, this is fairly simple design where we're using trees of different sizes. Some are shade trees, some are flowering trees, to break up the mass of the building, to provide shade and to provide, you know, natural space outside of the building to be attractive. But we're keeping trees that get taller and planting shrubs and some ground covers and some no-mow and low-mow grass in the green spaces around the building. So it's simple, it's easy to maintain. People have clear sight lines to where they park their vehicles, where they need to walk. We're not blocking views of any of the driveways. People feel safe and secure while also being in a natural setting. You'll see the interior of the two wings of the building, that's a courtyard space, and intended to be, you know, for use by the residents of the building. And it contains some semi-public and private spaces. There are balconies on the upper levels of the residential units, and they all look down into this natural space. So not a lot of trees, more ground vegetation there. And again, the main green in the courtyard serves a dual purpose. Not only is it natural space, but it's also stormwater management. That's a bioretention basin. So the planting there, again, will be largely trees with some shrubs to create some privacy and help define spaces. But the ground plane will be very naturalized vegetation within the basin. And then again, around walking spaces and activity spaces will be lower, largely low-mow grass and the lower shrubs. And then as we move around to the outer edges of the site, these are what we're calling restoration areas, where the existing vegetation is very naturalized. Not all of it is native. There's a lot of volunteer vegetation that's non-native there. But after the effects of development, or after the site is developed, we're providing plantings there to revegetate the site into, you know, a naturalized state. So it marries well into the surrounding, you know, natural vegetation, and all of the plantings there are native, and not just native, but native plants specific to this area. So we did a little research, or we always do research to make sure that plants that we intend to be restoration plantings are truly native in your area. And the ground plane vegetation here, so this is a series of trees and native shrubs. Some are clustered, some are spaced unevenly through the space, but the vegetation there would be seeded. And at the north end of the site is where you know, the environmental permit will apply, that those ultimately plantings will need to comply with whatever permit requirements are required. But the intent for those areas is that they be wild, that once the vegetation is established, that won't be mown. Might be managed to make sure that undesirable plants and things aren't growing there, and of course, kept clean, but that will be natural. And the last thing I want to point out is along the western edge of the property, at the top of the slope and along the parking lots, we've added a continuous hedge of a fairly large growing native shrub. It's deciduous, and we wanted to use a native shrub, and we wanted it to be deciduous because we want it to be tough enough to grow next to the parking lot, where it's gonna get hot in the summer and it'll be dry, and in the winter it might get some snow plowed on it. Somebody might push their plow over it. We want it to control erosion and have a good root system. We want it to grow fast, and we want it to spread. You'll see also there are more green circles at the ends of the two main driveways that provide access to the back of the lot. Those are evergreen trees to supplement the screen planting there. And in particular, you know, that they'll get a little taller. And the basis for not providing a continuous evergreen tree hedge along the entire back of the site was that we want this to be a naturalized planting. So we don't want a big wall of evergreens, solid wall there. We didn't want to provide a fence there. Again, that's a physical barrier, and even though it might be more effective immediately at blocking lights from parking cars, in the long run, it does little to complement the site or from the rail trail, any viewers view of the site. And I want to say I've been down the rail trail many times in different parts of the village, and the one thing personally that I enjoyed was to look, and not necessarily into an industrial property or I'll say a commercial facility, but was to be able to see what's going on in the business that I'm riding my bike by, walking by. So that in this particular case, there are going to be businesses here that may serve the residents, it may serve anybody like traveling by on Route 32, but on the rail trail. But you want to be able to have some views from the property to the rail trail and vice versa. You want people to be able to see what's going on. So we don't want to entirely block this. We want people to feel secure too when they're in the parking lot. We want some filtered views of the building. And because there's a slope here and the rail trail is down below, that helps to filter the views of the taller building. It's also stepped up from the back of those wings. So your views from the rail trail won't be as clear as they might be if you're standing in the parking lot, if you're on Route 32.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one general comment, and it has to do with deciduous versus evergreen on that western side. Everything you said makes sense from one perspective, but the other perspective that we've heard is that of homeowners on the other side of the rail trail. And this problem of sort of sweeping car lights.
Gotcha.
And there may be, I'm just wondering, I haven't explored this, there may be a way to put those evergreen clusters in a strategic way that answers just the houses affected. I don't know if it's more than 2 or 3 houses that would be directly in the line of car lights, but that feels like an obligation that we have to represent that concern that's come to me. It didn't really come to me forward, but this is how it works in a small community. People know who you are and they
Yeah.
share their concerns. Do you think there's a possibility that, let's see, the whole, call it height, the whole north to south of the property is about how many feet? The building itself has grown to 180. David, do you remember the length of the facade? That would give us a pretty good index.
Which portion? Like this here, like this side here,
No, I was thinking the 32 side.
the 32 side, so this is like 125 and like,
So just like counting quick parking spaces, I know they're not all 10 feet, but like I'm counting 35, so it's gotta be at least 350 feet.
Okay,
So
So-
it's a little more.
you know, we may be talking about 2 houses, given the
Yeah.
size of lots on Huguenot Street.
So I think, just from an aesthetics perspective, it might be nice to break up the hedge and cluster plants, the hedge, instead of a solid hedgerow, to cluster those plantings combined with evergreen material.
I think that would be.
Yeah,
To screen just,
Yeah.
those properties, and then it looks more natural,
Yeah.
the way that it's intended.
Yeah.
And we use fewer plants and there's no obstruction at the back of the parking lot.
And just for the benefit of the board, just so you all know, the applicant also did consider the neighbors across the street. We're talking across the state highway when they came out to the public hearing. So we're actually doing an off-site planting plan for those neighbors, just to understand that the applicant has vetted these concerns. The neighbors we're referring to in this application behind the building are much significantly set back than, of course, those directly across the street. And then we're trying to work through all of these design changes. But did want you to know, we did hear these comments, to your point, Mr. Chairman, during the planning board's public hearings, and we've worked these designs to try and mitigate and further manage, again, those 2 residences that you speak to that are set back very, very far from the back parking lot here.
Yes, like we did at the last meeting here about the planting plan for the other side of 32.
I apologize.
No, that's fine. Daniel, I think that would be my only comment. Everything you said about sort of safety and naturalizing the plants and leaving a certain amount of filtered view of 32, that all makes sense. But I'm also thinking about, these neighbors who
Sure,
under,
that's understandable.
yeah, I mean, it's lived experience with, some of the development that's happening south of that, which is,
And if I may, the planning board's also considering, we've adjusted some of the parking areas on the plan too. We have proposed more land banked parking than full out parking out the site, which would offer more landscaping opportunities. So we're trying that discussion is ongoing with the planning board and will be recommenced next week when we're back before them. But those are other ways that we can sort of try and, our parking plan shows we don't need it, but we're trying to be responsive to the board's comments of asking for more than what the studies report for. So we'll see where those come out, but that may be another opportunity in trying to align those visions.
Thank you.
So I think understanding where those properties are would help us to relocate and, adjust plant locations. And then they could be further, locations could be fine tuned.
Yep.
At the time of installation.
I'm thinking of probably the experience we've all had. It's one thing when a set of car lights
Yeah.
swings quickly through a lot on its way out. It's another thing when somebody finishes a radio story with their headlights on, warms up the car, whatever it might be, and
And they come on out of it.
yeah, or that as well, yeah, right, when
Yeah.
somebody's not even in the car. So I think it's just, it's part of our duty to respond to this concern, and it sounds like maybe some thinking about where those houses are and which parking spots are most likely to generate that problem, and then maybe doing some non-deciduous plantings in those areas, just mitigate. I don't think anybody's asking for absolute
No,
solution.
but certainly to mitigate that,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very thoughtful landscaping plan.
Yeah.
I think it'll
Yeah.
complement
Yeah,
the building.
it's a very generous planting plan too.
It's great. That's good. Thank you for presenting it in this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Just a few quick questions, just to help me read this, so obviously the trees are shown diagrammatically, but in terms of like the diameter of the canopies.
Sure.
These trees are shown at like a full maturity, is that correct?
No, typically, we show them at like 2/3 to 3/4, because, you know, when they go in, like, the trees in particular along 32, they'll be a pretty generous size.
Oh, yeah.
And those trees are the fastest growing trees, not super fast, but as trees go, faster than others. So, you know, like, the larger the circle, obviously, the larger the tree, but they're really shown at like 2/3 or 3/4 size, because it's, you know, takes time for them to mature.
Yeah.
And then I guess my other question was, just so I'm reading this correctly, like, the contour lines, I'm reading them, it looks like they're at 1 foot intervals. So is the rail trail like 10 feet below where the hedgerow is? Is that right?
There's a creek in the way, so.
Yeah, there's a little.
That drops
Oh,
out,
okay.
and then
And
it
then banks.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, it's like I couldn't really read the numbers. It's like,
I think
that doesn't seem right.
the greatest height difference might be as much as 6 or 8, but at
Okay.
the least, it might only be like 3.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
It's
It's not that great, yeah.
It
It
looks
looks like a lot of contours.
Yeah.
Thanks. Colleagues, any other comments or questions? No, all looks good. It really does look good. And we thank you both for, you know, sort of thoughtful responses. Taylor, I will make sure that there's a memo to the planning board. It'll get done this week in time for next week's meeting. I think we understand that there's still a couple of details that we're gonna wanna pursue, but there's nothing in principle that we're objecting to. And just things that as the design, particularly the architectural design develops, we'd like to stick with. So I think that should give you what you'd like to have.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, just a point of information, Mr. Chairman, if that's considered the formal recommendation of the DRB, I know the name is changing to reverse the names, but if that's the formal recommendation, that's what the planning board is actually asking for. We're certainly echoing that request, but that's a request from the planning board. They're already having us draft conditions of the approval resolution, so we are pretty far advanced with them. Of course, their review will still be going through the special permit factors and all those considerations, but the hearings are closed. The secret process is complete. The variants have been issued. And at our last meeting, they started to initiate the conditions of the resolution. So they're kind of working back end. They wanted to make sure they had your board's sort of full gambit. And I believe that they will, of course, continue to work through those specifics. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have input, from the DRB, but I think they're looking for a formal recommendation so that they can potentially be ready to move forward, not next week, but at their following meeting for a formal resolution.
That's all very doable. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Colleagues, is there any loose end that I could make sure I've got a list of things that we want to see the details on, and I'll enumerate that in the memo. I'll enumerate those in the memo. But in principle, you're not going to have any objections from this board, which is, I
Thank
think we're in a good place. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. We look forward to
Go
the
Knicks.
project. Thanks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, thanks again.
And thank you for the thought.
Yeah, thanks for the thought of the time. Makes it easier. Can you spare it?
I think it's fair there, yeah.
If you're not sure, then
Why don't I take it with and then
we're gonna have another conversation.
Okay.
That's fine.
Unshare screen.
Moving too fast.
Don't take over our meeting.
Why is it? There we go. Yeah. Good now.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. David, thanks very much. Okay, moving ahead, let's move on to DRB 2505. This is Mr. Floyd Niffen at 21 South Chestnut Street, looking for a circa 155 square foot addition to the existing structure. Floyd, come on up, please. Good evening.
How are you all?
Fine, thanks. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so everybody, we are wearing our design review hats. How many years ago was it that we talked about this?
2 years.
Yeah, this is 2 or 3. It sounds like business is growing. Or
No, well, I can't fit everything inside, so
Okay,
trying to do more than the building will let me do.
well, that's probably good. To me, everyone, this looks pretty simple. My only questions had to do with what you have in mind for roof line and materials, just to make sure we're not saying yes to something.
Sure, so everything is gonna match, what's there on the existing building. All we're doing is, taking that corner where you see the sign and just filling it in, squaring it off, so to speak. So the roof will just continue down, the siding will be exactly the same. We're just gonna put a double door facing on the side of the building. And we're just gonna move the sign forward.
So the double door is on the
Yeah, we'll
south
face the
side?
parking lot, yeah.
Okay,
Are those elevations?
Yes.
so we didn't have them.
No, we didn't get that.
We didn't get them. Oh, but that would be great. That was it. This one answered all. of the questions.
Okay, so there's no break, it's just totally considered.
Yeah, so right now, there's a corner here,
Yeah,
and it steps back, I'm just going to fill in the corner.
okay. Yes, like, so then I guess in terms of like the exposed foundation wall, like, I guess George, this is a question for you, like. What do you do there? You just saw cut that and then just pour the new foundation right up to it, so it'll be pretty continuous, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I figured, and then, all right, I mean, this answers all my questions,
Yeah.
and then I guess the other thing was, just like retaining like the rafter tail profile.
Yeah, everything will be the same,
yeah,
and we'll continue the half round gutter
Okay, great.
on that edge. of the roof as
Oh.
well.
That's great. And then there's the siding is, most of it you get away with because it's a door, right, and you can just come off that.
Yeah.
A couple of pieces. of-
Right, or I can keep the corner board here to break it out, like this sort of a.
It is a bit, yeah.
Is, I think a four-week corner board would be nice to.
Yeah, and so I can,
Yeah.
essentially do that, and that would break it up on both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah. Could we have the photos there? Just the vision. That was one of the questions I had, whether a continuous wall or.
I would actually prefer the corner board, just.
Yeah.
And have it right inside.
Is there any logic to just pulling it in 6 inches so that it is actually a corner?
That's what I was gonna say, if you're gonna have the corner board, I feel like maybe maybe pull it in 6 inches or so and.
Well, it gives me less room when I'm trying to get as many room as possible, and then it also complicates that, I'll have a little bit of roof ending.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think the corner board really gives you the effect, adding the board gives you the effect of a corner, continues the line of the building. I've done it many times, it works nice.
I guess it also tells a story of the addition a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, I think ideally it would probably be better just to kind of keep it continuing the boards, but I understand like logistically. You know, that would mean replacing a lot of the boards. I don't mind the corner.
Splicing it for, I mean, you wouldn't lose much next to the door, because the door.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good, yeah, that's.
You're really only talking about 4 splices.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think in a perfect world, if the siding continues, because you don't see that condition anywhere else on the building where there's just a horizontal board like on the flat wall. I mean, not to overthink this, but I mean.
We are doing design review and
Yeah.
historic preservation now, and it is at the rear of the property, so I wouldn't dig in. I will say personally, I would probably think really hard about pulling it in 6 inches, even 4 inches, so that the corner's actually a corner, but that's, I don't stand on that at all. Floyd, what's the height of, when that roof line terminates at the gutter, do you know what the height there is?
Of the lower part,
Yeah, when you finally
Here?
drop it down.
it's about 8 feet.
Okay. So nothing out of the ordinary.
No, it's,
Yeah, I mean, but that corner board is one piece that's like a corner, right? So would it actually remain or would you just like, because it's just gonna be flat now?
well, it's 2 boards.
Oh, it is
And I
2
can take
boards,
one
okay.
off, yeah, and
Okay.
just inside up to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think ideally the boards continue, but at the same time, I don't think it's. At the end of, I mean, I guess it does tell the story of the addition, but I don't know, I can see it both ways. Although I guess,
I mean, you're telling a different story with the first lean-to, right, which has continuous boards,
yeah, that's true,
right?
I mean, I guess my only problem with that is like, there's no other part of the building where you have like a horizontal board just like on the flat exterior wall, it just might. I don't know, I mean, if you really want it to be like a seamless, continuous addition, then I think the way to go would probably just be to. Take the board off and have those boards continue. That's my 2 cents.
There's no window on that wall, right?
No.
And no use for a window there,
Um,
because you're gonna lose.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna lose that, which I like that because I have my, like my lab table there and I can look out to the parking lot. Other than distracting me, I think it's, I get the sunlight, but.
Would there be any use to have it?
I.
Because that might break up that continuous wall really nicely, just bring that window to the street side.
Like right along where that corner board is, so,
Well,
or in the area that.
I think I would probably go continuous. And just, if you had a use for the window facing, it would be east. Oh, but you want your sign there, right?
I think I might be able to both.
It's just a thought for me. Get some light into that area, that's useful too. Personally, I don't feel that strongly. I mean, I think this is a really logical project. It is at the rear of the property. It's
Yeah.
gonna be done with the same materials. I think that's kind of the limit of our purview.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, let's make a note, unless anybody disagrees, that the details of whether there's a window or not, whether the corner board stays or not, or is a continuous line or not, are up to the applicant. And we're happy to approve the roughly 155 square foot addition that fills in the notch of that building. Everybody good with that recommendation?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good.
Sarah, do you feel like you have all that?
I have details of whether there's a window or not, continuous line or not, is up to the applicant.
Whether the corner board stays
One
or
of the
not?
boards.
Just single fascia here, you can't do continuous. The fascia all the way. There'll be single fascia, right? This fascia going all the way down.
It's not continuous.
Where's this one telling them?
You better really want something additional.
Right, I mean,
You got some nice
That's
opportunity.
continuous.
yeah, yeah.
Is everybody comfortable with that
Yeah.
recommendation? So Floyd, that makes you
Yeah, yeah, I
a
mean,
couple of options and you'll
Appreciate it.
kind of see it, and we don't know what you need to do inside, so window, you know, if it's shelving, you don't want it, and if it's a lab table, maybe you do.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it seemed like the most logical way to fill in this building is to do, you know, just kind of continue the roof line and continue the materials. You know, meet the existing eve height, I mean, it just makes sense.
That sounds great. So we'll report that back to the building department right away. It will be on. You're most welcome. Thanks.
Nice to go.
What's the timeline?
And I hope to be selling kegs to the bars and restaurants in July.
Wow.
Say I
Look forward to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's for my name. Thanks.
We'll try.
Okay.
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.
Everybody, let's move on to DRB 2506, 88 North Chestnut Street. Mr. Craig Chapman, I think, is in the audience. Come on up, please. This also looks like a pretty simple application. Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely. Thank you guys, it's the, what the plan is, couple of those, end result of the something like that. There's the building, actually, I've got it, and that's the. So yeah, 88, North Chestnut Street, I'm gonna be. Yeah, the building needs some love for sure, so we're gonna be putting a roof on it, black metal roof was the thought. Yeah. And then scraping and painting the siding in T11 and putting a dark gray paint outside.
Great. That is love. That'll.
Yeah,
That'll.
exactly.
Well, look very nice.
Yeah.
Craig, is it gonna be I never heard, is it gonna be a continuation of your bike rental?
Yeah, so I recently purchased some Avocado Bikes is the name brand. It's basically a beach cruiser that is an e-bike. So it's a class 1, 15 mile an hour e-bike with no gears or power displays. So people just hop on and go. And it's green, says Avocado Bike, so it's kind of got a healthy feel to it. And so we'll be renting those Avocado Bikes right out of this location. So that's the plan.
It's a good location.
It's a great location. It's fantastic across the street and you're right on the trail. So absolutely.
Are you gonna break into sales as well?
You know, there's definitely an option for that. The biggest thing is the amount that you need to bring over containers of bikes. So I would say definitely not this year, potentially next year, but rentals has been good to me. So I don't have a huge desire to sell them, but you know, if it works out that way, but you know, officially it's kind of sales, service, rentals. You know, rentals is the main component of that.
Maybe sell the fleet at the end of the season.
Yeah.
There's a bike shop in town that does that.
Yes, now the Bike Depot did that for years, so yeah, there is definitely that option as well. And then on here, you do see that deck that will be you know, replaced same as before
So, you know, slight upgrades there, just in terms of new treads and actual decking.
Okay, and
material.
no changes
No,
to the.
no,
Okay.
no changes at all, but,
Just, well, so Sarah, let's make a note of that. That wasn't clear in the application, that there's also gonna be a like for like replacement of all the parts.
the ramp, it just needs, again, some love, so I did wanna
Let's
mention
just say
that
the
it
ramp and railings as well.
yeah, everything's there, so like for like on that pressure treated, but definitely needs some love there as well.
That's great. Do you know your paint color by any chance?
So yes, I do. I mean, the one that's in the picture is not official. Let me Grizzly Gray by Benjamin Moore is what it is. Grizzly Gray by Benjamin Moore.
Okay.
And it is very close. I actually went to the building today to just double check because the color that's on that building is specific to the LP that they used. But it's a pretty darn close match of that color, that darker gray.
That's great. And then, are you gonna have a different trim color or is it gonna be monochrome?
I think it's gonna be all the same, is what I'm looking to
The monitor
do.
color's gonna look nice.
Yeah,
So,
It's better than all the details on the.
You gonna paint that garage, you want the same color gray?
you know, I think so. That's
You
what
guys,
makes sense to do that too. Yeah, so that's the plan.
Are you planning on using the 32 side door, which is blocked off or has not been used in many
So,
years? What's your?
I would love to put a deck there. It's just time, money and energy for the first stage of that. I mean, I'll probably come back to you guys when I'm ready. I believe someone said it was like a 20 by 20 deck out there, which is a monster of a deck, but as of right now, it'll just be the access through that ramp door. And again, I would like to, it'd be nice for Flo to be able to open that door and have people, you know, come in and use the shop there.
it is a great building for your business with that big door.
It's been, I mean, already just being able to put the bikes somewhere instead of storage and trailers and all that. So it's been really, it's gonna be a perfect location to be able to house those bikes and get people out on the trail. So,
nice.
yeah.
Will that be the end of the trailer, River to Ridge? or-
No, the River Ridge, everything will still continue, but I'm just sensitive to how many people I rent to at the River Ridge. It's a public lot, and so to use it all for commercial space doesn't, you know, it's not quite fair. So I monitor how many people I put in and out at the River Ridge Trail. So this location, I mean, there shouldn't be a problem in terms of the people that I'm able to get out, I believe. So.
And also, I mean, you will have clients who want to go north rather than south.
that's correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's terrific.
I mean, it really is, as you said, a great location just across the street and you are on the trail.
One touch of the cross.
It's a,
button.
yeah, absolutely. So,
That's great. Do you know the roofing material or the manufacturer?
yeah, Union,
Union?
yep, and it's a Grand Rib is the profile.
Okay,
About a nub every 9 inches on that or something, 3/4 inch nub every 9 inches, so.
this is really just for the record. It's
Yeah,
not-
absolutely, yeah.
This feels very straightforward and positive to me.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna get rid of this blue, absolutely. Cleaning it up.
Yeah.
It's been pretty lonely. I live around the corner. It's been
Yes.
lonely.
Yeah, it's been- yeah, so hopefully, I mean, if everything goes well here in the next 3 weeks, it'll all be, you know, taken care of, so.
Right.
It's great news because someone did float an idea about having a dispensary there.
Yeah, that was, yeah,
Just concentrating right in your
One
neighborhood.
at Zero Place, one at Stewart's, and
Yeah.
one here, so.
Right, just like the Bermuda Triangle. Okay, so colleagues, any objections to approve it as submitted?
None.
Provide the details of Union Grand
excellent.
Rib and Grizzly Gray.
And Christy Gray.
Meg, I'm seeing that as a bench for Sherwin-Williams.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that right?
I think it is Sherwin-Williams.
Sherwin.
Yeah, I went back and forth trying to find one. I think it is, you're right, Sherwin-Williams.
Hey, Craig, including that, I do have one question,
Yes.
including the white foundation.
Yes,
Color gray.
yeah, all the way down. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And then like for like, ramp and railing replacement.
Yeah, I mean, where that blue T111 is will be T111 with, you know, that grizzly gray in front
Yeah.
there, so, yeah.
This sounds great. So we'll communicate that over to the building department and, you
Fantastic.
know, literally as early as tomorrow, they'll,
Excellent.
I don't know if you're waiting for a permit. It's not a permit, right?
No, it was
Yeah.
just this approval and then, you know, a couple weeks to order and it'll be going, so, great.
Wonderful.
Cool.
And
Thank
then
you so
the
much.
other
I
towns
appreciate
will
it.
follow.
Yes, absolutely.
Nothing.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good luck. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
You
Do you
got
need-
it.
do you possibly need some of these for another?
I mean, I'm happy to take it, if they're
Yeah.
gonna get
I think we'll just
More or
keep
less.
an archival copy. Do
fantastic.
you have,
You know, we might want to leave one
Oh,
for the building department.
You can have that one then, you have one of both,
and I'll keep one for the.
by all means, we get to. I know, if you want, it, very good.
Okay, thanks again. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's see what this board can do. Press on quickly.
Okay,
Looking at his phone.
so that's 55, next 47.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
They need cheering. George, quick update on 199 Main Street.
Yeah, so, most of the building's about 80% finished.
Yeah.
A nice area. The front porch, they took that front wall out.
Right.
And went back to the original wall of the building, so it's gonna be a full front porch now. They're keeping the columns, there was a lot of rot in, on the framing of the deck. So they're gonna reframe the deck, there's some tongue groove, real half-inch tongue groove of for flooring, which they're gonna put 3/4 thick composite tongue groove flooring there
In place of.
in place of the wood. So it's all tongue groove, 1x4 tongue groove. On porch ceiling, they're gonna have some beadboard, wood beadboard ceiling. They're keeping all the detail of the columns and the brackets. There's some ornate wood brackets in between the porches. All that's staying, except on the columns, they're not gonna side them, add siding on them. They were originally stucco, the whole building was originally stucco. They're gonna do recessed panels.
Oh,
On
nice.
all the columns, which are gonna look really nice.
That's gonna be with great opportunities to do trim.
Nice color boards and trim detail with a recessed panel. So, yeah, it's doing a real nice job, and, I think the architect has started, landscaping started Friday.
Wonderful. So they're getting really close to it.
Yeah, he's moving in the building in 3 weeks. Wonderful. Should be done in 3 weeks. Good.
Thanks. That's been a real success.
Yes.
So let's see. HPC updates and discussions. So the first thing I'll do is add something that came in just Friday afternoon. At 1 Henry Court, the owner of that house wants to do like for like roofing replacement. And the only difference will be, it's gonna be architectural grade rather than, tabs, which would be nice.
Yes.
And, she currently has metal, valleys and is thinking about just doing the cross weave with shingles, and that's kind of a modern technique, so. I said, yep, that's like for like, and when you know the roof color, just communicate it to us, but she's looking to do this color. I have not heard anything further from 112 Huguenot Street, so we can call that on hold for the moment. The railroad siding project, no real updates since last month. We're still waiting to see what the results of the survey are, and when that survey's in, this group will have a better idea what the land will permit in terms of putting down some gravel and rails. I'll keep you posted, but should know something next month. Stephen, anything from 1:30?
Last month's, application HPC 2504, Mr. Singh, the 105 Huguenot with the fence and stone wall in the backyard. I believe he's having some people in. I haven't had a chance to stop by and say hello and just see what's up, but I have seen tradespeople there. So things are happening. 130, Huguenot Street has not sold. The current owners have come back and they're hanging around. I don't know what they're doing. They're
But it was in contract.
it seems to be, but either there was a contingency or somebody's house didn't sell to facilitate this, or I'm not sure.
So the deal fell through.
I don't know. I mean, but the current owners remain current owners. So, I mean, there were some times that I thought, you know, it had been super quiet and then the other vehicles were there and I thought, oh, it's closed,
Yeah.
but apparently not. And other than that, not much on Huguenot Street.
Okay, well, not much can be good to know. I'll just throw in, I'm very impressed with how Harmony Home is shaping up. They're practically down to landscape. I'm sure there's a lot of interior work, but there's a new sidewalk poured. It looks like they've done some grading ahead of landscaping, and it looks to me like the exterior is done or mostly done. And boy, those entries looked even better than depicted, I think.
I think they look really nice.
Yeah, so, I think, again, design review is a good thing. Camilla, you have the floor. There's much to talk about with the art show.
Thank you. I don't know if you had a chance to stop by the library, but the art show is off and ready to view because they able to finish on time, thank God. And thank James and John, who are my continuous helpers with this project. I think I will start doing the shopping very soon so that I can submit the receipts on time for the budget. The only thing I would like to ask somebody is maybe to get the drinks from me and bring them to the library. Either the day before the reception or on the day. Because there will be a lot of things to carry, so I
It's
will
roughly a case of bottles.
yeah, some water and some soft drinks. And I think Tom, you did that
I
last
did it
time.
last time, it was no big deal. I just don't remember when I did it.
I think you did it the day before.
What date is that again?
Saturday the 31st. Things can go in the fridge for a few hours, so,
There's the library refrigerator if you need. something.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a small fridge, I don't want to occupy too much space.
At
in
what
there.
time would you need that day?
I would go probably when the library opens on Saturday to set everything up. They are opening 10. So maybe 11 or 12, even.
So that's what time?
1.
Comments at 2. So let's talk about the run of show. So reception opens at 1. Comments will begin at 2. Things pretty quickly wrap up after that. So by 3,
Mhm.
we're cleaning up.
Or even sometimes we stay a bit.
Yeah,
longer,
well,
maybe
we'll see.
3:30.
I'm not gonna be able- Yeah.
Okay, my calendar looks great to do that, so,
Do you think you can-
yeah, so. Yeah, so do what exactly, pick up the drinks and bring them to the library?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, okay.
If you get in the jam, I can be your backup. That would be Saturday morning.
Yeah, sure thing, and I pick them up from where, well, I'll just buy them, like this.
No, Camilla, that's off.
I will buy them.
Oh, yeah.
Swing by her house.
So,
Should get him over to.
I will talk to you about the details.
That sounds good. I'll be around. Yeah.
But everything looks great. We had 69 entries.
Wow.
Oh, great.
That's a new record.
It's a bit less than last year, but we had over 70 last year.
Thought we
With the-
maxed at
With
50
the
some.
tribute pieces, but, yeah, it was
And we're all set for judges?
Yes, we are. We have 4 judges in fact, because, Peter will have to recuse himself for one category.
Oh, okay.
And, we have Mary Kessler, Kevin Cook,
Oh.
Peter Fairweather, and Maureen Rogers.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yes. We included some winners from past years and
That's grand.
some judges who have done this before, like Shannon and
I think that sounds great. Thank you, Camille, for all that work. And you'll send out, do we want one more piece in the paper?
At this point, I don't think so, no.
How would the timing work? It would have to go in for next Sunday, which is the 18th. Actually, we have 2 issues. Paper we wanted in is the Wednesday paper before Saturday. This would be mostly just for people. I mean, the participants will know. I think it might not be a bad idea just to do one little blurb.
Issue on the 28th, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be like 28 paper.
I can write something.
That would be great. Just, people who might just come casually. There's one other thing, that I wanted to offer. I would like to, in a more invitation-only basis, invite everybody over to our house to celebrate Val's retirement. And it looks like the best date is the 31st, maybe an hour after closing time at the library, just keep the party going. So I'm thinking 4 might be aggressive, 4:30 might be just about right. Comfortable for you, Val? You're the guest of honor, so let's,
Start without David.
we might, but you better show.
Yeah.
I won't be able to make.
You can't make it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to miss you,
Yeah.
George. And Steven's not gonna be able to.
Can't be really-
And you're at the Civic Center, right?
A friend's bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's right. But let's go ahead and do that, 4:30, 8 Grove Street. I think, you certainly know it. Shane, 8 Grove Street, we've walked by our house. And I'll get something out to you. Bill would be most welcome. He would
Thank you.
care to come. And, I will get something to you. It'll be nice to raise a glass. Okay, anything else on the art show?
We will have, the popular vote again.
Good.
The box is out, so you can cast your votes too, please do. It's going to be fun.
So maybe we should make an announcement. I seem to remember kind of a scramble for people last time because we were starting announcements. And we said something only then. Or signage could do it.
What is signage?
Yeah, maybe just
It's
double.
pretty clear.
Do you think it's-
Yeah.
Did we get enough votes last time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then it's not an issue.
No.
All right, this will be the 11th. the 12th.
11th.
Gosh, what a tribute to you, Camille.
And we have many new artists this year.
That's also,
Yeah, it's
that's also really great.
many first times.
Yeah, that would be. The budget is good. We're at about 80% expended with, almost just one more month and at this point, half a month to go. Val, the only thing I can think of is if we wanted to get a few more frames just to, okay, so let's just give some money back to the village. But Camilla will be, putting in for the supplies. But, okay. Other business, the summer courses, August 20th, 21st, I kind of know ahead of time, you'll do that. Those mandatory, workplace seminars, there's a really nice opportunity coming up on the 20th of May, 9 and 10 a.m., and then it's done for the year. Those are virtual, and therefore pretty easy to get through. So you might want to do as I did and just highlight that and get it in your calendar, and then it's 10. One is at 9 and the other is at 10, and they're like 40 minutes each.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nothing to report on the oral history. Sorry, that's kind of like a running joke, but I still really do intend it. And same Shane, at some point, Shane.
This time I actually started this,
Okay.
the last couple of weeks, but nothing really.
Oh,
to look
okay,
at.
so jokes on me then.
Well, I mean, put like maybe an hour into it, but
Well,
so,
still, that's good. The other thing kind of on my list, it's not here, but I have had a draft for the longest time of a DRB application form that's a much more simplified version than the HPC. Not that the HPC is that much, but what keeps happening is, you know, the only thing the building department has to give out is the HPC form. So people are answering HPC style questions with, you know, things like we saw tonight, and we just need a form that's much simpler. So that's on my agenda, and that's probably even a priority, just to get that. That's all I have. Can anybody think of anything else?
The permanent calendar, there's something from May about, term limit terms and anything, is there anything that
Oh.
needs to be done?
I don't think this year, we're waiting to hear George would be filling out, you'd be filling out Michael's term, which I think expires next May.
I think so.
So we,
Actually, I think the new expirations will be December
oh,
as renewals happen.
oh, is that right? They're shifting to that, okay. So it sounds like a good question, though, Sue, but I think we're all okay. in
Yeah,
terms
we are
of-
good.
Should
People,
we,
George's alternate term, I think, was coming up for renewal now, so it's not gonna go away.
Did you read the agenda?
yeah, no, that's, yeah, I've got.
All the way.
I have gotten in the habit of not reading page 2. Everybody, this felt like a meeting where we were actually helpful to a couple of clients. I mean, one big project, like the trim idea in the bottom was really good. Oh, thanks. And I think in the smaller case, we didn't really have anything to add to Craig's proposal, but I think we gave forward some ideas that you can think about. And, you know, I think whatever comes of it is going to be just fine for that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so code revision is sitting on my virtual desk. This is the DRB version, which will be before the village board on Wednesday. I've just been busy with so many other things, but there's some revisions to the HPC version that I will get to, and we'll move them through, and they will be improvements. I think that's everything. About a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded by George. All those in favor? Okay, so that's unanimous, as it always seems to be.
Unanimity.
That's right. Amazing what an hour and a half to do. Thank you all very much.
You're welcome.
Go enjoy the game.